Hello. Let me introduce you to today's guest. Um, Her story is shaped by a movement of adaptability and deep-rooted family values. Growing up as an Air Force child, or often called an Air Force brat, she lived in 10 states and 2 countries, learning early that the power of relationships and the art of influence. With a double major in information systems and accounting from Virginia Commonwealth University, a CPA, and an MBA under her belt, she now works alongside of her husband, specializing in sales, deployment, and support of commercial floor cleaning robots.
Cleaning robots.
Oh, I got to find out more about that.
Yeah.
Her background is a testament to how life is a constant transition and can build the strongest foundations in leadership, resilience, and connection. Born in Mountain Home, I was thinking that was not a town. I had to look it up.
Yes, it is. It's south of Boise.
Yeah, I looked it up. I was saying, oh, okay. Mountain Home, Idaho, and part of a proud Air Force family. Her story reminds us how every move, every challenge, and every new community shapes the life of what we were meant to lead. Today's episode, we have a quote from, "When life keeps moving you, you learn to grow stronger roots wherever you are." Welcome, Trish. How are you?
Thank you. I love that quote. That is fabulous.
Fantastic. So, tell us, how old were you, or were you born into the military?
Oh, I was born into the military. My parents, my mother was from New Jersey, my father was from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
They both joined the Air Force and met each other and married in Anchorage, Alaska at Elmendorf Air Force Base.
Okay.
And this was back in the day where women really weren't supposed to be married in the
I was
military.
wondering.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to ask
Oh,
because.
no. Yes. And that's unfortunate, you know, because she was great in the Air Force. And actually, she outranked my father for a short period of time.
Okay.
But they moved to an Air Force base just south of Boise, Idaho, and that's where I was born. So I was born into the military.
Okay. How many siblings do you have?
3.
Okay. Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
So you were the first born into it.
Yes, and my sister was also born in Idaho, but I have a brother who was born in Colorado and another brother who was born in Germany.
Oh, nice. Germany is one of the countries.
And France was the other, and of course the United States.
Okay. So how old were you when you went out of the country?
The first time, probably 2.
Okay.
And we spent 3 years, then we came back, then we went to France and then Germany, and then we came back again.
Okay.
So there was a lot of movement. Just about every year we moved.
Did you learn a different language?
When I was a child, I could get along passably in French.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
That's good. So you said 10 states. What was a state that you can remember being in?
Well, when somebody asked me where I was from before Virginia, I always say Colorado because we lived in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's about an hour north of Denver, 3 times.
Okay.
So, but I've also lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Orlando, Florida, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Charleston, South Carolina. I love Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. I was going to say, you planted roots here.
I did. I came to VCU. I thought I would get my degree and move, and I just fell in love with the city.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. We love to have you here. So, in your moves, how did you adapt?
Well, in the beginning, I grew up in it, so I didn't really know I was adapting because it's just life.
Right.
You know, it's just what you're used to. It's how you grow up. And any time that we lived anywhere where there were other military kids, they all got it, right? So it wasn't really adapting. It was almost like a competition to see who could be the new person's best friend.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you went to school on base?
Yes.
Okay.
I went to school on base. At one point, my mother actually put me in the French public school system, which was a little bit of a challenge because I didn't speak French. But she just figured we'd figure it out.
And
I guess we did. I guess we did.
You said you spoke a little French,
That's
passably.
why, passably. And then we went back into the military schools. I think the biggest opportunity for me that was really more of a challenge maybe than an opportunity was going to the public school system when there weren't other military kids in the same school.
What state was that in?
The first time it really hit me, that was probably Colorado.
Okay.
It was I'd gone to Colorado 2 other times, right? And I was in the schools. So I knew some people. But the last time that we moved to Fort Collins, I was in middle school. And middle school kids aren't
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Grade school, they're like, hey, what's your name? You want to share my lunch?
Yeah.
Middle school is like, who is she?
Everybody has established their relationships in middle
Already,
school.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was harder.
Now, you lived there in Colorado 3 times.
Yes.
So you went in elementary, middle school, and high school?
I went kindergarten, a little bit of first grade, 5th grade, and then the second half of 8th grade through high school. So I was in high school, the same high school, all through high school.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. 2.5 years.
Yeah, you didn't have to make friends as a teen.
Right. Just once I hit middle school.
Okay. So, what's your favorite memory?
Of moving?
No, just being in the military.
Oh, being in the... when I was younger, my father was a pilot.
Okay.
And we went all over Europe. And I just thought that's how everybody was. I thought everyone went to Pisa and Venice and Madrid. I just thought everyone did that. No. And so I'm very good at traveling. I'm a good traveler.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you travel a lot now?
Yes.
Where is your favorite place to go?
I want to go back to Ireland and I want to go back to Scotland. But this year we're going to Munich for Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Yes. And then we're going to spend some more time in Europe, and then we're going to an island for a week, so it'll be fun.
Now, your husband is military, correct?
No, he was. He was in the Navy.
Okay.
Yes. So he travels well.
Yes. So did your parents tease him about being in the Navy?
No. Actually, he did know my mother, but my father had passed away when I was in middle school.
Oh.
But he did know my mother, but my brother was in the Marines. My son was in the Marines for a little bit. My sister-in-law was Army. So we kind of like spread it across all the armed forces.
So no.
There are some jabs.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
There has to be.
Yeah, I think the Marines are more of a cult, I think, and Air Force is more of a social club. Everybody has their little digs.
They do.
That they give to all the other military kids, yeah.
Air Force is the only one that gets served their meals. Everybody else has to get up and throw the tray.
See?
So,
I don't even think of that, but I think you're right, yeah.
Yes. Air Force is a little privileged.
Yeah.
So.
It was a great way to grow up.
I bet.
Looking back on it, I'm so, I feel so fortunate that I was able to learn how to be flexible as a child because now I can travel well. I don't have to stay in one place and feel insecure or uncomfortable about meeting new people, moving around, trying new things. It's just how we grew up.
And that's what I actually wanted to tap into, your flexibility, your adaptability, because at a certain age, kids stop and they're like digging their heels in. Now, at that age, you got to stay in high school the whole 4 years, so you didn't have to dig your heels in. Did your siblings have to move?
Not in high school.
Okay.
Because my mom kept the kids in Fort Collins. Well, my sister... Oh, you're right. My mother felt my brothers were getting too stabilized and they were getting stuck in their ways. So she moved them back to Anchorage.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying to,
Yeah.
teenagers do get very stuck.
Stuck in their ways.
Yeah. So that was very smart of her.
But you need to get out of that because everything changes. Your whole life, everything changes.
It does.
Right.
It
So
does.
you have to be able to adapt to it and look for the silver lining in it. There's always one somewhere, but you got to find it.
See, it's that positive outlook that you have that makes it all the better. There are some people that don't have the same kind of outlook. At least it's not positive.
It can be scary.
Yes.
Especially when you're a teenager. Oh, my God, you're trying to figure out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And your friends and your environment are part of that identity.
It is.
And so then you're going to rip them out of it and stick them somewhere new. It's scary.
Well, that sounds kind of hurtful.
It's scary. I think teenagers feel hurt.
They probably do.
Yeah.
They probably do. And I work for the Red Cross, so I encounter a lot of, I volunteer. Let me get that clear. I volunteer for services to armed force families, and I sit down with teens all the time and talk about change. I want to tell you, working with military children is the most amazing. They are the nicest, the kindest, the most, polite children
yes.
you will ever meet.
I believe that.
At least that's my encounter. I know other people may have had something different, but you also got to understand that they're flexible. They're changing. They go through this, that, and the third. I work with families when a parent is about to deploy.
Oh, wow.
Or at a yellow ribbon when they've just come back.
Yeah.
Did you have to leave? Did your parents ever leave you in one city and have to go off without you?
My father left us and went to Vietnam for a year.
Maybe that's not a good choice of words. He was deployed.
He was deployed. And he wanted my mom to bring us and live somewhere near there so he could see us on a more regular basis.
Oh.
But my mom thought it was too dangerous. I mean, children had been kidnapped, and she wasn't going to take any chances. So that was actually the second time. That's why we went back to Fort Collins the second time, is because my dad went to Vietnam for a year. And that's very hard when they leave, but it's very hard when they come back.
Yes.
Because everybody's gotten into their routine and their life.
This is something I always talk about.
Yes.
Maybe somebody was taking out the trash and then Dad thought it was his job.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, where'd you come from? I've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, does that really happen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or when it's your parent and they are responsible for you and they're trying to provide guidance. And you're like, wait a minute, I've been doing this differently for a year. So, yeah, it can be very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to give, everybody has to give each other grace.
Yes.
Because you're learning.
You are learning.
Yes.
They're learning.
They're learning, yes.
Your father missed you probably immensely, and then he comes home to stubbornness or,
We all had our own lives. We were just like going,
right. And he doesn't know where he fits. Where does this puzzle piece go at this point? Because he's been gone a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that tracks.
And depending on where someone has been for the past year, they might have a lot of issues that they're trying to process.
That's the
because
other
they
thing,
were exposed to things that
nobody else was.
And some of those things are very difficult to process.
I had a Navy vet who was 86 years old. He's my favorite client. I talk about him all the time, unfortunately. But he was in World War II. And one day we were playing chess. He was coming because his wife died 51 years. I think they had been together.
Yeah.
And
very
usually, the male doesn't, he's not far behind because they're used to the women taking care of them. He told me in the middle of one of our chess games that he said, I was just swabbing the deck and a missile came and split the ship in half. And somebody I was just talking to was over there, dismembered, and somebody else was over here. And then we had to get back to work because we had to make sure everything was okay. And after that session, I'm just sitting here amazed because it was like learning at the knee. Have you ever heard of that phrase?
No, but I think I know what it means.
You-
But you can explain it a little bit more.
Because he's my elder, it was good hearing the stories of how he went through life and what he experienced. I always say I'd rather experience life through somebody else's eyes than to skin my knees myself. But
Perfect.
yes, so he told me about that story, and he had never told his wife. He had never told his daughter. His daughter was actually, I believe she was Air Force. And his son-in-law was Army. And he never told anybody that story. And he said, you know how good it feels to, at least talk to somebody about that?
Yeah.
And I do know there's a little stigma with military coming to counseling. So, but to have to hold that in for decades and not to let your family know what's going on. So some days you could be real moody and they not understand.
That's
and
right.
Like, why has he got an attitude? So
Yeah.
it's kind of good that you were adaptable.
Well, it's also easy to take those things and try to pack them in a box and tape it up and stick it in the attic somewhere. And then something happens.
And it brings it right back.
It brings it right back. And so you react, and other people are looking at you thinking, why is she overreacting to this? And I'm not reacting to that, or that person's not reacting to what just happened.
Right.
It's that box in the attic that just popped open.
That they thought was nice and tucked away.
Yes, and it comes back.
Yes.
But there are some excellent therapists for military people. There are some excellent therapists who specialize and focus on helping military people. So there is somebody out there to talk to.
Yes, there is. Now, it hasn't always been that way. I want to say social workers were introduced, psychologists were introduced a little earlier, but social workers were introduced to the military in the 90s. So they've always been a part. And they use CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's usually in groups, but psychologists do individuals. So it's different whichever way, but he didn't have anybody to talk to.
What does that involve, CBT? What does it
CBT is, the best way I can describe it is there's a set amount of time. And in that set amount of time, you're going to do a set amount of activities because it focuses on the here and now. It doesn't want to know about the past. It wants you to understand where you are now and to change any behaviors you need to change within a 10 to 12 week period. So that's what CBT is. Sometimes it involves homework and worksheets and, it works well because a lot of times with military groups, you have drop-ins where the group just keeps going and you just pick up where they are, but you get the same work because it keeps going in a set pattern. Does that make sense?
So drop-ins can catch up and they can kind of...
Well, they don't catch up. So if I'm in the group for 4 weeks and then you come into the group on the 5th week, you will go through 5th through 12th with me, and then you will start over at 1 through 4.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it doesn't have to be building blocks.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not building blocks at all. It's where you are, so that's where the homework comes in for you to do it. It's not my choice of therapy. I'm more of a person-centered. And I'm a play therapist, which is why we were playing chess.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And person-centered, child-centered, whichever one, is when I focus on what you want to focus on. I don't dictate, what we're going to talk about today type of thing. So the goals are different. It's whatever they need to deal with. That's why that conversation just popped up in the middle of a chess game because that's what he felt like talking about. So, yeah, but this isn't about me.
No, but that's so interesting that he would all of a sudden bring something back that must have happened, what, 60s?
40, yeah, it was in the 40s.
Yeah.
It was in the 40s.
Yeah, had to be.
He said he was he 24 or 25?
Yeah, 60 years ago then.
Yeah.
For sure, maybe, well, more than 60.
It's more than 60. He's been gone for about 5 years now.
Okay.
But
So did he pass away shortly after his wife?
no, he
Good
was
for him.
he was a client of mine for 2.5 years, and then he slowly lost his sight, so we stopped playing chess after a while, and then he went to he was homebound, and his daughter was like, he would really love to see you. Can you come out to the house? And at that time, the job that I worked would not allow me to leave the office, so I couldn't. And then she invited me to the funeral, and that's a boundary, unprofessional boundary. But I mean, he really touched my heart a lot. His biggest moment was, when he came back from the war, nobody appreciated him. So he went to a restaurant, a steak restaurant, with his daughter and his son-in-law, and his daughter mentioned to the waitress that he was a Navy vet, World War II Navy vet, and he got a standing ovation throughout the restaurant. He said, I have never in my life, he said, I didn't even want to tell people I was in the military because of how they reacted. He said, but it's a different day.
It is.
I said, it is.
It is. Thank heavens.
Yes.
Yes, because the vets who came back from Vietnam,
They didn't get a good one either.
No, they were not welcomed.
No.
No.
And I guess World War II wasn't either. Just hurry up, get back to work, and do life.
I just finished reading a book about World War II, and it was just heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All wars are heartbreaking.
I think so, too, because there's casualties, not just the ones you hear about in the news, but the ones that have to go home and, like you said, pack it up, put it in the attic, and don't take it back out for years, decades.
But that's what therapy is supposed to help you with. If you can get through that part, if it's something you want to do.
Right.
If you want to unpack those boxes.
There you go.
There's somebody there to help you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because everybody doesn't want to unpack.
That's right. Sometimes they're up there for a reason.
Yes. And a lot of people think therapy is weak. So.
Oh, I think everybody should have a therapist.
I do too.
I mean,
I'm so glad you hear this, Tom. I think that's beautiful.
It's a third party who's trained, who can be independent.
Right, non-judgmental.
And sometimes they're just like, I understand why you feel that way. That's absolutely justifiable. Good for you. And it's like, oh, I'm fine.
You're fine.
I'm fine.
You're normal.
It doesn't have to be some dredging things up.
Right.
It's just like an independent friend.
Yes.
Who does not judge.
Right. No judgment.
And your family doesn't need to know everything about you anyway.
They don't.
Sometimes it's fine.
Sometimes it's better that way. So his daughter never found out about the ship or anything else that he told me.
I'm sure that affected him for the rest of his life.
It probably
Absolutely.
did.
Yeah. Oh,
it
sure.
It probably did.
Yeah.
But he was a very doting father. I love the relationship he had with his kids. So you lost your father in middle school.
Yes.
How did you deal with that?
It was just like, and maybe it was because my mom was in the military, or maybe it was because of her background, but it was just like, okay, let's go on. Life goes on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, everybody grieves differently, so.
Yes. But what we did, so my father's buried in Fort Collins, Colorado. So when my mother died, she was cremated. So we took her ashes back and put those in on my father's grave.
Oh.
And we go back to Fort Collins now like every other year, and go to the grave.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a military?
No, a lot of people think that Fort Collins is military, but it's really like Colorado Springs is more of the military, and that's south of Denver. So Fort Collins is actually closer to Cheyenne. And there is an Air Force base, Francis E. Warren Air Force Base, and that's in Cheyenne. So we were stationed there as well. When my father came back from Vietnam, we went to Cheyenne. So Fort Collins was just kind of our home because we were there 3 times. And because my dad was originally from Colorado, too.
I was going to say, I think that's what you
loved
mentioned.
Colorado.
Did she?
Yeah.
She loved the air. Well, we didn't have as many allergies there.
No.
So, yeah.
Not like Virginia, the allergy capital of the world.
Right.
Yes.
I couldn't, when I first landed in Denver, I was like,
you can tell a difference in the air.
it was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then when you come back, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
The humidity.
You need that day to balance back.
Very different.
Very different. So did he pass in the military in the line of duty?
No. He got a medical discharge. He is when he was in Vietnam, his blood pressure went crazy. He had a heart attack, so they grounded him, which really flying was his life. So he had a very difficult time reconciling to that. And he probably, less than a year later, after he got the medical discharge, he had a final heart attack that killed him. Yeah.
So he was home.
Yes. But, something else that we found out from this in my mother's side, too, is that when you learn a lot about your family's history and their medical history, a lot of these things are genetic.
They are.
So you can get tested, and now there's medication.
There is.
Yeah.
Let's prevent what's about to happen.
We all have AFib. Everybody has AFib in my family.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of us.
Now, how old are your siblings?
My sister passed away when she was 44. My brother is, I have to think how old I am. He is 61. Oh, my gosh. And then my youngest
keep 'em
brother. Young. He is in his mid-50s.
Okay.
Gary's in his mid-50s.
Okay. And how old were you when your mother passed?
How old was I? It was in 2011.
So she got to enjoy her grandchildren?
Yes. And we had them in little batches. Like there were 3 born in 91. There were 3 born in 93. And then 95, everybody left me. The other 2 left me. They didn't keep having babies. I'm like, where are you guys?
You were done after 2, huh?
They were done after 2. And then my youngest brother had 2.
Okay.
So she had 9.
That's
right?
beautiful.
Yes.
She got to see all 9 of them?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And they all got to know her.
That's big,
wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the wonderful
Because
part.
her memory lives on.
Yes.
When you keep talking about, my grandma used to do X, Y, Z. And yes, I love when kids say that. And they can keep going and tell their kids. That's how stories pass on.
And that's something that I think a lot of military kids can lose because you're moving all the time. So it's not like you're growing up in the same city as your grandparents and all your cousins. And so you have to make that, it has to be a really thoughtful process of saying, I'm going to stay in touch with these people. But it's easier now. Some of the things about social media are really much more difficult on kids. I mean, really.
It
but
is.
Then also, you can keep in touch with everyone, and you can, have Zoom meetings with your grandmother, and you can
Zoom, FaceTime, all
whatever.
Of that. Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
They have the digital photos so you can keep them up to date.
And kids are like so fast with this stuff.
They are. So were your parents ever deployed at the same time?
No, because my mother had to get out of the Air Force when she got married.
Yes.
So she still worked in a military hospital, but she was no longer active duty.
Civilian.
She was not in the military, when she had me.
Okay.
And then my sister was born like 17 months later.
Okay, I was going to say because they would need a plan.
Yes.
And grandparents usually are part of that plan.
I don't know how else military people do it without their parents.
Yes.
I really don't know how they do it.
There's a few that have to rely on other military friends to help out, but
that's got to be so hard on the kids.
I would say, if they were younger, You know what? Like you said, high school is one of those ages where you're trying to find yourself.
Yes.
So I shouldn't just say the little people have more of a harder time.
No.
Everybody, toddlers and teens, when you have a parent and you don't know what the outcome might be because they're out in the yonder and you have no idea what they're going through. They have no idea what you're going through. And most of the time, military does not discuss what they're going through.
That's true. That's true. That's
So-
like when my father died.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Move on. Mm-hmm.
But your mother was trained military,
Yes.
so that's
Yeah.
what she does. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What did she do in the hospital?
She was a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was in a lot of different wards when she was in the hospital, and then she worked at CSU, Colorado State University, in the clinic there, and she really liked that. And then in Virginia, she worked at the VA for a while, and also with the state of Virginia, partnered with a social worker going to facilities who accepted Medicaid patients and making sure the patients were cared for properly. I mean, you might serve someone a steak, which sounds fabulous, but if they don't have teeth, it's not fabulous. So she really worked on providing care at that kind of level. But as a military kid whose mom was an Air Force nurse, we were never sick because she'd seen sick.
She didn't want it in her
We
house.
were not sick. Suck it up. In fact, I told my daughter, suck it up, Buttercup, and for the longest time she thought Buttercup was just her name.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I know,
cute.
it's kind of cute. But I think that military kids do just kind of grow up with that kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to how you're still learning who you are in high school, you're still learning who you are when you're 30.
Yes. But it's the hormones
Oh
are
gosh.
involved.
Well, there's
when
it's such a roller coaster.
Right. They throw off. You might think it's going to be all, and then you wake up and
And crying for no apparent reason.
Yes. Hormones are different after 50 too.
Oh,
So-
certainly.
But I think you start to figure out who you are by then. So it's a little
And you're not
easier.
so hard on yourself, for heaven's
Exactly.
sakes.
Exactly.
It's okay.
Because you give yourself that grace.
That's right. That's
So.
right. And you don't know how to do that when you're a teenager.
No, you do not. No, you do
And
not.
nobody is really giving you grace either, not in school. Very few kids are empathetic
Mm-hmm.
and supportive and caring because they're still trying to figure out themselves too.
Right.
It's a rough time. We all get through it. It's fine.
You're
gonna be okay.
Obviously, you got through it.
All
Did you
of us
have the
you have to.
positive attitude in
Yeah.
high school?
No, I was more of a follower because I was so much younger than the other kids. By jumping around from school to school, a lot of schools have different age requirements to start. And so when I hit the military schools finally, and they used to test us every year to see where you were, because you could be in the low level of reading in the 5th grade and the high level of math in the 6th grade or something. I mean, they had it down. So you were always challenged. But they said that I was a year behind because my birthday is at the end of December. And when I started school, the cutoff was the end of September. So like she should have started a year ago. So they
Yes.
skipped me up a grade.
Oh, nice. Well, not.
Not in high school when you're the youngest
gonna
kid
say,
in
there-
the entire
there's some emotional-
class. I was not emotionally ready.
There is some
I'm not going to
emotional-
say anybody was emotionally ready for middle school or high
Right.
school, but I certainly was not.
Right, right. So, if you could say something to a teenager who is trying to figure out who they are, and they're in a military child or a military family, what would you say that you took from your childhood that you could bring to
That I look back on now,
Mm-hmm.
really give yourself some grace.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stress out over every decision that you've made
Mm-hmm.
and what you wore last week. It's all fine.
Mm-hmm.
No one is going to remember later.
Right, right. Yeah.
Be patient
Do
with
you
yourself.
do class reunions?
No, I went on my husband's. I went to my husband's.
okay.
That was fun.
Why didn't you go to yours?
Oh, they're in Fort Collins, Colorado. I don't even know anybody anymore. That's another thing that I'm not saying this is good, but when I've moved places, I've really lost touch with a lot of those people.
Nowadays, you don't have to.
Nowadays, you don't
Yeah.
have to. But then, I mean, were you going to sit down and write a letter every week?
Right,
No.
right.
No.
So did you write letters to your father in Vietnam?
Oh, yes.
Care packages?
We didn't really write letters, but my parents both had tape recorders with little tiny reel-to-reel.
Nice.
This is back in the olden days.
Yes.
And so we would send him messages.
That's nice.
Yeah, and then he would record and send us back one.
That is really wonderful because I'm thinking the technology is so much better now, to keep in contact, unless for some reason internet is shut down on base. Otherwise, you could have those daily interactions with parents. So,
And that's really good for everyone in the family.
yes, it is. It is to keep in contact. That is really nice. You did the recordings.
Yeah, that was back in the late 60s.
I was about to say.
Yeah, that's how, yeah.
That's expensive then. It was very expensive then because technology, yeah. The mini recorders when I went to college were expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm laying mine on the desk. They said, "Oh, how you afford that as a college student?" Okay. I didn't realize. So
I didn't have one of those in college. I had to take notes on paper with a pen.
I took notes too because some professors in the big halls where they had
Yes.
like 60 to 100 people.
Oh, easily.
Right.
VCU. You
Right.
can have a class with 120, 130 people.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I went to the University of Toledo and they had that as well. And
Yeah.
Yeah. But the smaller classes
Yeah.
where you pick them and you could, I love reading. So I picked fiction and writing and all of that. And those were like 32 people maybe at the most. And those professors did not allow recording. So
The kids today, I'm saying this kids, they're college students, they're adults, but they take their laptops and they're just typing away.
Well, actually, they have a thing on the laptop where you just press the microphone and it takes your notes for you. So, I mean, there's so much.
I still use a pen and paper.
There's so much. I'm on a computer all the time.
I am too.
But
I mean,
yes.
if I'm in a meeting,
But
I write it.
That's your business, right?
Computers?
Yes.
My degree was in information systems and accounting, so in the beginning I was really involved with automating accounting processes,
Okay.
process improvement. You know, how can you take extra steps out of a process?
So what do you and your husband do now?
So he has this robot cleaning business. I mean, it's hard to find people who want to clean floors for a living. I mean, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah. It's hard on your body, too.
It's hard on your body. Yeah, absolutely. And so they're like an R2-D2 size robot.
Really?
Yeah, they're commercial cleaning robots. And there's one, they have vacuum cleaners, and they'll just vacuum everything, and then they have scrubbers. And if an area's been vacuumed, then you could have a scrubber go through, and it squirts down clean water, scrubs, sucks it up, squeegees, sucks down more clean water. So like the mop buckets, you know, if you ever looked in one of those in the grocery store or something?
I don't want to say the name brand, but I use one where the clean water is in here and it squirts up to the mop and the dirty water goes over. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is important.
It's important,
Yes.
yeah. And especially, I think during COVID, we learned a lot about that.
That's when I got the mop.
Yes, yes, and it makes it
yes.
so much easier.
It did.
So that's what these robots do.
did.
And what he does is, yes, he sells them. They also deploy them, but they provide a lot of training and support. If you just give someone a robot, and it's like, here you are.
Right.
So, you know, if there's a problem with it, you can call them 24/7. They have monthly meetings. So it's a lot of support. And so I retired, and he's talked me into coming into the office a couple times a week. Just a couple times.
What's that, 5 days?
Now it is. Yes.
That's what I was
creep.
thinking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it went to 5 days.
But it's good. It's I don't want to say mom and pop business, but it's a nice little.
It's a mom and pop business. Sure, you can say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's cozy.
It is cozy,
Yes.
and we talk about work all the time, and I'm enjoying it because I'm not working for a big company, and so if there's something that I see that I want to change, I can do it, and I like
That's
that.
important.
Yes,
That's important. I think that's why I stopped working for bigger companies.
I worked for a lot of big companies, and there are amazing benefits at working at some of those big companies. You know, the
teams,
relationships,
right,
yes,
all of
the
that.
learning, the
But once you
benefits.
hit a certain place and you know you can do so much better if they would only listen.
Well, there's a lot of infrastructure that's already in place. Yeah. Yeah, true. Very true.
So, yeah, we've always did it this way.
Yes. That probably means it's time to change it.
It does, most of the time.
Well, because technology is changing so quickly. So if you're
Well,
still
I've
doing
never
something,
heard of these robots. When we get done, I need you to show me what they look like.
you'll have to come over to the office and see
Okay.
them.
That
I would
would
love
be
it.
nice.
In fact, there's a woman, I hope this is okay that I say this. She's a robotics teacher at John Rolfe Middle School, and she's going to come over and look at them. And Maggie Walker has an excellent robotics team.
Wow.
So a lot of the schools are
Already?
developed. Yes.
That's good.
And these kids are smart.
They are.
And
They are.
just,
We don't give them enough credit.
no, they just pick things up so quickly.
They do.
They don't have all of the baggage that we had of having to understand. How does that work? They're just like, oh, cool. Does it do this?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And they get it to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, they're amazing.
My grandson was, I think, 2.5, and I said, "You want to take a picture?" And I went to put it up, and he took my phone. He did this and this, and
Yeah.
and he made sure we were. I said, "Oh my gosh!" Like, he's 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so amazed that he knew how to work my phone.
Yeah. And when these kids hit the workforce, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with because they are smart.
Yes, they are.
They have to get an education. That's the most important thing you can do
And
for
that's
yourself.
where we met, at a middle school.
We met at John Rolfe.
Yes. So
That's right.
To make sure that the kids continue
That's right.
to understand what they can do with their
I was at the
lives.
finance and accounting table.
I was at the counselor's table.
That's
so-
right. And my daughter was at the finance and
Yes.
accounting table.
Yes, because it's a family business, right?
No, she actually works for another company.
Oh.
She did a double major in finance and real estate at
Okay.
VCU.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So, mom and pop business.
Our son works with us, one of our kids.
That's what I thought you told
Yeah,
me.
there's all, yeah.
That's what I thought you told me. Okay. Retirement, but not retired
Not
anymore.
retired. No.
What would you say to a teenager today?
Just to really give yourself grace. And get as much education as you can. If you get an education, nobody can ever take that away from you.
True.
And it's always going to open doors.
True.
And it doesn't have to be a 4-year degree and a master's.
No.
2-year degrees. Some, what is it? IT,
Apprenticeships.
cybersecurity.
Yes.
A lot of those are
Yes.
2-year degrees, and you're always going to have a job.
Yes.
And it's interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes money.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong field.
Support yourself.
Well, thank you for coming. I really
Thank you for
enjoyed having a
having
conversation with you.
I enjoyed it too.
And we might have to have you back when you have one of your little R2D2s with you.
I would love to.
So,
Absolutely. Let me know if you want to see them.
okay.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Bye-bye.